Hello, and thank you all once again for joining me today. Thank you to all the new listeners and those of you who have rated and reviewed. I really appreciate you all. It's so great to see people are checking in on the show and seeing how it's going, giving me some feedback. It's immensely helpful. It truly helps the show get more recognition, and for that I can't be more appreciative. I am your host, Travis Fenn, and this is Beneath the Shadows. I am recording again today from the darkness of the Shadow Realm, my office studio here in Ypsilanti, Michigan. If you haven't had the chance to rate a review, why not stop over there after today's episode and give the show 5 stars, give me a rating, give me a review, tell me something about yourself, tell me about something you love in life, tell me about your favorite things to have on a charcuterie board, tell me something, just anything. If you hate the show, well, go on over and give it 5 stars, tell me every last thing you hate about it. I appreciate you all so much. Next thing up now, socials. I always mention them. Please go and follow the social media pages on TikTok and Instagram, along with Patreon. There will be some free episodes on Patreon, but for the most part, it'll be a short, small monthly payment of $3, just $3 to get some episodes, 2 episodes to start per month, every other week on Thursdays. For Instagram and TikTok, please go follow them. The name on those is Beneath the Shadows Podcast. There is a Gmail as well if you'd like to send any updates or topic suggestions. That is beneaththeshadowspodcast@gmail.com. And finally, the Patreon, like I had mentioned, the name on that is Beneath the Shadows. No podcast on that, just Beneath the Shadows. With the housekeeping out of the way, as always, get it out of the way up front. Maybe move it to the back of the show if it ends up getting longer, but with that out of the way, I say it's time. It's time to dive deep, time to pull some details out of the shadows, and time to head into a short history of filicide and a whole lot of examples of murderous mothers. Yes, a whole shitload of filicide and infanticide in this one. So sit back, relax, just a little at least. Try to relax. It's time to meet some killers. All right, really quick before getting into this, I want to do a little graphic content warning. Some of these killer mothers get a little gory with it. So a couple of them are kind of bad if you are a little sensitive to gore or details around gore and terribly disgusting things. You may want to sit some of these ones out or maybe take this episode off. Gore content, though, a little graphic gore content. Just a warning. Thank you. All right, now let's get into it. Filicide, the act of a parent killing their own child, has been present throughout human history, dating back to the earliest civilizations. In ancient, I don't know what the fuck I said there. In ancient Greco-Roman societies, a father had the legal authority to end his child's life without facing repercussions. This practice was seen as an extension of patriarchal power, with the father's will considered paramount over the child's life. Even after the rise of Christianity, which emphasized the sanctity of life, instances of filicide continued, particularly by mothers. They would sometimes claim that their child had accidentally suffocated in bed, though underlying motives often included disability, gender preference, poverty, or the child's illegitimacy. So if the father was not the father, some Maury type stuff, you are not the father. These justifications have persisted across centuries. However, in ancient times, the lack of formal documentation and birth records made it easier to commit such acts without legal consequences. Authorities may have deliberately turned a blind eye, especially in poor or overcrowded communities where resources were stretched thin, prioritizing population control over enforcing laws. A shift in societal attitudes toward children A shift in societal attitudes toward child murder emerged in Europe during the 16th and 17th centuries. France and England enacted strict laws that condemned filicide, making it punishable by death. In these cases, the legal system presumed the mother's guilt unless she could prove her innocence, creating an environment where women had to defend themselves against murder charges even if there was no clear evidence of foul play. However, this harsh stance began to soften in the early 20th century. England's Infanticide Acts of 1922 and 1938 marked a significant turning point by acknowledging the impact of childbirth on a mother's mental health, postpartum depression, things of that nature. These laws recognized that postpartum mental illness could influence a mother's actions, and as a result, filicide was treated more like manslaughter than murder. This is in Europe. The United States, capital punishment for maternal infanticide was abolished, and similar reforms spread to other Western countries, though the United States has been slower to adapt such leniency. Filicide also has a long-standing presence in literacy and folklore, reflecting its troubling persistence across human culture. One of the most well-known examples comes from Greek mythology, the story of Medea, who murdered her children to exact revenge on her unfaithful husband, Jason. Interesting. Medea and Jason. It might be Medea, M-E-D-E-A. Might be Medea. In her rage, she declares, "Thy sons are dead and gone. Thy sons are dead and gone. That will stab thy heart." A chilling expression of how the crime was used to inflict suffering. Even in classic fairy tales like Snow White and Hansel and Gretel, the themes of filicide are central as they explore narratives where step-parents or parents cast children away or plot their deaths, presenting it as a manifestation of cruelty or desperation. Filicide's history is intertwined with societal, religious, and legal shifts. In ancient societies like Sparta, infanticide was even institutionalized, pretty common practice. With newborns inspected for strength and viability, those deemed weak were abandoned to die. This harsh form of population control reflected the extreme utilitarianism of early civilizations. The motives for filicide have remained relatively consistent throughout the ages, often tied to the child's perceived burden on the family. In pre-modern societies, children born with disabilities or those of an undesirable gender, particularly female, unfortunately, were frequently the victims of filicide. The Roman practice of exposure, where unwanted children were left to die in remote areas, persisted well in the early centuries of the Common Era. Early centuries of the Common Era. In medieval Europe, severe poverty and famine often made survival uncertain for families, and filicide was sometimes considered a grim solution to overburdened households. By the early modern period, as European societies became more structured and judicial systems advanced, the act of filicide began to be recognized as a crime, especially in cases where the child's death could be definitively linked to a parent. However, until the 20th century, postpartum depression and psychosis were not fully understood. I don't even know if it's still fully understood, meaning that mental illness often went unrecognized in cases involving mothers who killed their infants. In the United States, the legal treatment of filicide has remained strict, with very few allowances made for mental health of a parent, especially in comparison to European standards. Nevertheless, modern psychology and law enforcement have started to acknowledge the role of mental health in these tragedies, though significant differences remain between countries in how such cases are prosecuted. So we'll talk about a few cases, definitely where postpartum and depression and things of that nature were big, big factors in them, and then we'll talk about some where there is some other heavy factors that weighed on people, some common and consistent factors. But there are several reasons why, according to Dr. Timothy Mariano, the study's lead author, offered up three theories. The parents are often mentally ill. They usually have higher levels of testosterone, and the offspring that they kill may be considered unwanted. Forensic psychiatrist Philip J. Resnick, pioneer in the study of filicide research, identified 5 major factors or 5 major reasons. Altruism: the parent kills the child because he or she may perceive it to be in the child's best interest. It may be reality-based. The child suffers from terminal illness of some sort, or precede the suicide of a parent. Oftentimes, if a parent's going to kill themselves, they may take a child as well, as the parent feels it would be unfair to leave the child behind to face the cruel world. Acute psychosis: the parent kills the child based on the idea that they are inconsistent, based on the ideas that are inconsistent with reality. For example, the parent believes that the child has been possessed by the devil. An unwanted child is number 3. The parent kills the child that he or she regards as a hindrance. Accidental: the child's death is an unintentional outcome of parental physical abuse. Sometimes this is a single time of abuse. Sometimes this is consistent, persistent, and long-term abuse. And 5, spousal revenge: the parents kill in an effort to exact revenge on the other parent, which is definitely a factor in a couple of them today as well. Even Cheryl Meyer, co-author of several books on the subject, said it's probable that a mother kills a child somewhere in the United States every 3 days. A statement that blew my fucking mind when I heard it. Absolutely absurd number. This number is pretty accurate, unfortunately. Crazy, wow. All right, with a small amount of history about filicide behind us, we'll now take a look at some maternal monsters. These murderous mothers who definitely do not have the motherly instinct within them. Let's head into today's murderous mums. So I'm not quite sure exactly how many of these I will get through. I have 25 lined up, but it might be a little long for the episode. I'm trying to stick under an hour still. Please let me know, though. Please let me know what you think about episode length and what you prefer for episode length. If you'd like to see them longer, I'll do my best to make them a little bit longer and more detailed. Like I've said before, I do everything for the show by myself. I do all the research, I do the script writing, I do social media, I do, marketing and advertising and whatever else I can do. I do it. I do recording and audio editing, things of that nature. I do a little of everything for it. So putting it together sometimes is time consuming. I will always do my best to give as much detail as possible. I've been trying to stick to around the 45 minute mark, but pushing them to an hour or so would be great. If you are interested, please let me know. Let's dive in though. First murderous mother, Mary Beth Tinning, murderer and suspected serial killer who was convicted in New York State of the murder of her 9th child, 4-month-old daughter, Tammy Lynn, on December 20th of 1985. She is suspected to be similarly involved in the previous deaths of her 8 children, all which took place within 14 years. So 14 years of each other. Damn, she fucking murdered 9 kids. They think she murdered all 9 of her kids. The causes of death for Tinning's first 8 children were initially thought to be genetic. Even, holy hell, even when the 6th child, Michael, who was adopted and not of blood relation, died in 1981, authorities failed to open an investigation. Stupid ass, incompetent fucking cops. Crazy. They're like, yeah, it's genetic. That adopted kid that she got, that's it. She genetic, yeah. Fucking dummies. She was convicted of second-degree murder July 17th of 1987 and convicted to 20 years to life. Number 2 is Susan Smith. She's a woman who was convicted of murdering her 2 sons, 3-year-old Michael and 14-year-old Alexander, in 1994 by drowning them in a South Carolina lake. She had them, I believe had them get into her car, and she pushed her car into a lake. I think she was originally she was going to drive the car in herself and kill herself and her kids, but she decided to not kill herself, instead just kill the kids. She received life imprisonment with the possibility of parole after 30 years. She will be eligible for parole next month, starting next month, November 2024. This fucking bitch. Horrendous fucking bitch. Diane Stout, Staudte, I believe it's Stout. Diane Stout and her daughter, Rachel Stout, committed these crimes together using antifreeze purchased off the internet, with the rationale that antifreeze sold online would not contain the added bittering agent in commercial chemicals, making it detectable. Diane's husband, Mark Stout, was murdered first, followed 5 months later by her 26-year-old autistic son, Sean. 24-year-old daughter Sarah had also been poisoned with the antifreeze, being taken to the hospital in critical condition. Sarah survived the poisoning and later recovered, but she does have physical and neurological damage from it. Diane Stout was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole in 2016. This happened in 2012. Rachel Stout pleaded guilty to second-degree murder in May of 2015 as part of a plea deal in exchange for testifying against her mother, eventually being sentenced in March 2016 to life in prison with the possibility of parole. Not a ton difference, but she might get out later on. Number 4 is Amber Pastor, or Pastor. It might be Pastor. I'm going to say Pastor because it's P-A-S-Z-T-O-R. An Indiana woman serving a 130-year sentence for fatally smothering her 2-year-old child was sentenced Monday to an additional 65 years. This is when part of an article. To an additional 65 years after pleading guilty but mentally ill in the shooting death of a former neighbor. Here's a little background. Amber Pastor, 30, entered the plea deal in September of 2016. Entered the plea deal in the September 2016 killing of 66-year-old Frank McComber. Frank McComber. His body was found in a wooded area near Pastor's house. The two formerly were neighbors in a mobile home park. Authorities say Pastor killed McComber, stole his car, and abducted her 2 young children from their custodial grandparents' home, prompting an Amber Alert. She then drove about 70 miles from Fort Wayne to Elkhart and parked behind the Elkhart Police Department. The bodies of 7-year-old Liliana Hernandez and 6-year-old Reen Pastor were found inside the car. She was sentenced to, like I said, 130 years plus 65, 195 years total. And fuck her. Fuck that little bitch. She even drove the bodies to the police station and left them in the car behind the police station. I think she got out, but she might have called the police, and I don't know exactly how she finished that one up. Diane Downs, number 5, a woman who murdered her daughter and attempted to murder her other 2 children near Springfield, Oregon, on May 19th of 1983. Following the crime, she made claims that police had to police that a man had attempted to carjack her and had shot the children. She was convicted in 1984 and sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 25 years. She briefly escaped in 1987, but was quickly recaptured. Downs has been repeatedly denied parole, and psychiatrists have diagnosed her with narcissistic, histrionic, and antisocial personality disorders, with one labeling her as a deviant sociopath. Life in prison with the possibility of parole. Earliest possible parole would be next year. So we'll see if she comes up for parole anytime ever, which would be terrifying and scary. She is quite a bit older now. I believe she's in her 70s, but I may be wrong. Still, don't trust that bitch. Number 6, Andrea Yates. Crazy story. Crazy. An American woman from Houston, Texas, who confessed to drowning her 5 children in the bathtub on June 20th of 2001. The case of Yates, who had exhibited severe postpartum depression, postpartum psychosis, and schizophrenia leading up to the murders, placed the McNaughton rules, along with the irresistible impulse test for sanity, under close public scrutiny in the United States. She was charged with capital murder 5 times over for the death of all 5 of her kids. She would originally be sentenced to life imprisonment with the possibility of parole after 40 years, but this was overturned in 2005. The original sentence was 2002, overturned in 2005, and she was retried. She was found not guilty. She was found not guilty by reason of insanity. She had a lot of problems with depression and postpartum and suicidal thoughts, things of that nature, violent thoughts. Before she had even all of her kids, her and her husband decided to continue having kids, even as she was showing some of these symptoms. She, like I said, had drowned all 5 of her kids. She called them in one by one and drowned them one by one, I believe, starting with the oldest and then going backwards. I might be wrong about that. It might have been the other way around. Terrible. She's still in a psychiatric institute, and she does not want to be let out. Her personal opinion is she does not want to be let out. Number 7, Christy Sheets. Christy Sheets called a family meeting with her husband and 2 daughters on Friday in the living room of their Fulshire, Texas home. Jason Sheets thought his wife was going to tell Taylor, 22, and Madison, 17, that their parents were getting a divorce, as they've had a divorce looming between the 2 of them, Christy and Jason. Instead, she pulled out a gun and fatally shot her daughters. Fort Bend County Sheriff Troy E. Niels said in a news conference on Wednesday, like I said, this is from an article as well. Minutes later, a Fulshire police officer shot the mother outside the home when she refused to put down her weapon. So she did not get sentenced. She died in the aftermath during police intervention on June 24th, 2016. They asked Jason why he thought she did this, and it was just to hurt him. She wanted to hurt Jason, and that's why she did this. She killed both of his kids, his just coming to adulthood fucking daughters, and herself, to hurt him instead of dealing with a divorce. Stupid and selfish and terrible. Number 8, we'll roll into Megan Huntsman. From 1996 to 2006, Megan Huntsman murdered 6 of her newborn children shortly after giving birth to them in Utah. The serial infanticide was discovered in 2014 when Huntsman's ex-husband, Darren West, began cleaning out the garage of their Pleasant Grove house he once shared with her. While moving several boxes, West discovered a small white box wrapped in plastic containing the small, decomposing body of a baby. Appalled by his discovery, he contacted authorities. His ex-wife Megan was brought in after admitting to him that she had given birth and put the infant's stillborn body in the box in the garage. During this interview, she admitted first to 4, before finally stating she did not know how many there might be, at one point saying 8 or 9. Megan stated she had choked all of the infants, with the exception being 1 stillborn. In the end, police discovered 6 more bodies, one of which was later confirmed in an autopsy to not have been murdered but was stillborn, like she said. After the full investigation, it was determined that the babies were Darren West's children, but that Megan Huntsman, unbeknownst to him, had murdered them minutes after they were delivered. But, did you not know she was pregnant? I don't know. I don't know exactly if she was like a 600-pound woman and you wouldn't know she's pregnant, or maybe she didn't show at all and she was pregnant. How do you get pregnant 8 or 9 times and not show, or your husband doesn't know, or how does he not ask where this child that went to, or how you're not pregnant anymore if you were and now you're not. Like, I don't. He seems like he knew something, and I don't know. It seems very. He probably didn't know about it, but it seems like he should have known about it at least. Megan was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced 30 years to life in prison, so will have a chance of possibility of parole after 30 years. Next, we have number 9, Corolla Arnau. Corolla Arnau shot her 2 children to death before fatally shooting herself. Dr. Stephen Diamantoni. Yeah, Dr. Stephen Diamantoni, some Italian, who ruled the deaths a murder-suicide. Arnau, 40, shot her 10-year-old daughter multiple times in the head and the 4-year-old son multiple times in the body as they slept. Why one in the head and one in the body? It's a fucking weird way to do it. Why multiple times in the head? What are you shooting her with? She killed her children and then herself on June 6th of 2017. Next up is number 10, Jessica Edens. Around 5 p.m., July 13th of 2017, Jessica Edens drove to the Greenville apartment complex where her estranged husband lived and shot and killed 28-year-old Meredith Rahm while she was sitting in her car in the parking garage. They believe that maybe Rahm and Jessica's ex-husband or soon-to-be estranged ex-husband, I think they were going through a divorce, and I believe she thought that her husband, Benjamin Edens, and Meredith Rahm, had a relationship or some physical relationship together. Jessica Edens complained to an officer who came to her home the day before the shootings that her estranged husband was involved in an affair for the past year. Jessica Edens' children were in the Jeep when she killed Rahm, and she immediately drove them 7 miles to Eastleigh, where she killed them and made the phone calls to her estranged husband. Edens and her children each suffered 1 gunshot to the head. So she killed herself after she killed them. She called her husband, her estranged husband, in between killing her kids and killing herself. Number 11, Sarah Lynn Krueger, Freddy's daughter. If you didn't know, if you see Freddy Krueger 6, I believe it is, Nightmare on Elm Street, good old classic 70s, 80s things, he has a daughter named Sarah Lynn. She was actually a real person, a murderer that got burnt as a baby and had a horrible injury that scarred her for the rest of her life. She went on to kill her 3-year-old Kaylee Slusher was so badly beaten in January of 2014 that her small intestines ruptured. She died from the resulting sepsis. A jury found her mother, Sarah Lynn Krueger, guilty of murder with the special circumstance of torture, as well as assault resulting in the death of a child under 8 years old. She was sentenced to 25 years to life. Freddy's daughter is now gone and in prison for life. I can't imagine that she's going to get let out, even with the horrific way that she looks, the terrifying burns that she has. She might spend most of her time in the medical unit getting, burn cream, some ointment, maybe some bandages and gauze. I hope you know I'm all, I hope you all know I'm kidding, that no Freddy Krueger relation. Last name is Krueger, no Freddy Krueger relation. Not born on Elm Street, this one. From 11, we go to 12. 12 is Stephanie Diane Smith, an Alabama woman who confessed to smothering her 4-year-old daughter with a pillow in 2016, has pleaded guilty to the crime. It's from an article, again, obviously. Life in prison without the possibility of parole was what she was convicted with. Now we'll bounce over to 13. 13, Lindsay Lowe. Lindsay Lowe, she gave birth to the twin boys in the bathroom of her parents' home in an upper-middle-class neighborhood in Hendersonville, about 20 miles northeast of Nashville, on the night of September 12th, 2011. She told police she smothered them and placed them in a laundry basket so that her parents would not hear their cries. Lowe's parents found one of the babies 2 days later and alerted police. This fucking asshole Goddamn, she had fucking squirted out 2 kids in her parents' bathroom. Don't know if her parents, I'm guessing they didn't know she was pregnant, or she fucking, I have no idea. But squirted out 2 kids, fucking murdered them off. She said, fuck them. And then puts them in a laundry basket. Terrible, just to start. Like a fucking weirdo. And then doesn't do anything with them. Leaves them there. How long was she going to leave them there? This was 2 days later her parents found these fucking bodies. Jesus Christ. A Tennessee woman convicted of murdering her 2 newborn twins was sentenced to a minimum of 51 years in prison. Yeah. The judge said he found the 26-year-old untruthful and selfish. Very fucking selfish. Convicted last month of felony murder, premeditated murder, aggravated child abuse, and the murder charge carries an automatic life sentence. Number 14, in 2014, Nicole Kelly. Investigators say that Kelly told them she had reached her breaking point and just didn't want her 11-month-old boy anymore. And so, she told police, she wrapped little Kiam Felix Jr., Kiam, K-I-A-M, Kiam Felix Jr., in a sheet last Sunday so he could no longer breathe. Then, sources say, Kelly proceeded to take a shower and methodically get rid of all of her baby's belongings. Why? Why are people so fucking evil? So terrible, so awful. She fucking's like, yeah, I don't want this kid no more. Let me wrap him real tight, fucking like I'm putting goddamn cling wrap on him. Let me get him wrapped up. He can't breathe no more. Perfect. Awesome. Now, let me shower. I feel dirty. After murdering. And, now I need to get rid of all these fucking baby possessions so no one knew I had this little fucking cocksucker, Let me get rid of all of this shit. All right, Kim, peace out. She also posted on Facebook about how she missed her fucking kid, too. How she was so sad that he was gone. Like, it was a couple days later. People fucking ruined her. It's like, you stupid bitch, why would you murder your kid? Great, I loved it. Loved that. Charged with second-degree murder. I couldn't find exactly what she had been sentenced to, but she faced 25 years to life. Number 15 now is Alexandra Tobias in 2010. She told investigators she became angry because the baby was crying while she was playing fucking Farmville on Facebook. Mark Zuckerberg, Farmville, Facebook. All associated with Alexandra Tobias shaking her goddamn baby to death. So, she was playing Farmville, got pissed off at this kid, and had apparently shaken this baby to death while playing Farmville. The little note I have on here, Judge Adrian G. Soud sentenced Tobias to 50 years in prison after hearing several hours of testimony Tuesday. Tobias cried at points, but was led to a fingerprinting station with a blank look on her face after Soud gave her a scathing lecture from the bench. Deservedly. Deservedly, so much so. The sentence was the highest end of a plea bargain negotiated in October as Tobias pleaded guilty to second-degree murder in Dylan's death. From 15, we'll go... It gets worse. It gets worse than fucking people shaking their baby to death over Farmville, which sounds a little ridiculous. It gets so much worse. Why? Ka Yang, K-A-Y-A-N-G, Ka Yang, in 2011. According to evidence presented in court, Yang was alone with her daughter Maribel in March 2011 for about 11 minutes. Less than 15 minutes, less than a quarter of an hour, just over 10 minutes. During that time, Yang put Maribel in the microwave for 2.5 to 5 minutes. Why? Why do you do that? Why? You cooking up like she's a fucking baked potato? It ain't gonna warm her up. She isn't crying. I mean, she'll stop crying, I guess, but whew. A Hmong, H-M-O-N-G, Hmong mother who does not speak English has escaped the death penalty. They had her up for the death penalty. I wish she would have got it. And has been sentenced to life in prison for microwaving her 6-week-old daughter like a piece of meat. From number 16, we'll go over to number 17, Frances Newton. April 7th of 1987, murdered her husband, her son, Adrian, her son Alton, and her daughter Farah. And she was executed due to this. A lot of hubbub around her conviction and whether she had competent attorney, someone who actually looked into appeals and evidence, things of that nature. But she was executed by lethal injection in the state of Texas on September 14th of 2005. From Frances Newton, we'll go to Robin Lee Rowe. Robin Lee, convicted of the murders of her husband and 2 children. The murders took place on February 10th of 1992 when a fire broke out on the first floor of the Southwest Boise apartment in which her husband, from whom she was separated, and her 2 children were living. When fire crews reached the scene of the burning structure, they found 3 bodies that were subsequently identified as her husband Randy, 34, and their children Joshua, 10, and Tabitha, 8. All 3 had died due to carbon monoxide poisoning. She was arrested on February 13th and charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder. Her trial began in 1993. She was found guilty on each count in March and sentenced to death on December 16th by Judge Alan Schwartzman. In 2011, Rowe's appeal was dismissed by U.S. District Court Judge B. Lynn Willman, Windmill, it's like windmill without the D, B. Lynn Windmill. She is the sole death row inmate in Pocatello Women's Correctional Center, PWCC in Pocatello, I believe that's Idaho. From there, we will go to Michelle Kehoe, or Kehoe, I actually didn't look it up, Kehoe, Kehoe. Kehoe took 2-year-old Seth and her other son Sean, who was 7 at the time, to a remote area near Littleton in northeast Iowa in 2008, October. Police and prosecutors say Kehoe placed duct tape over her son's eyes, mouths, and hands and cut their throats with a hunting knife she had bought a month earlier. She then cut her own throat. Seth died as a result of his injuries, but Sean survived. Michelle also, unfortunately, survived. She was sentenced to life without parole. From there, we will go to number 20, China Arnold, an American woman who was convicted of murdering her 28-year-old daughter, Paris, again by heating her in the microwave. Let's have a good, tasty fucking meal, pop that shit in the microwave for a few minutes. Delicious. Life in prison without the possibility of parole. That was 2005. Number 21 will now pop to Bernadine Prusner. Prusner, yes. Pruessner. A house fire that killed a mother and her 4 children is believed to be a murder-suicide. This was only this year. This was the beginning of this year. Missouri police say the Monday, February 19th fire at a Ferguson home in Missouri killed 39-year-old Bernadine Prusner and her 4 children, Ivy, Ellie, Jackson, and Millie. It is believed that Bernadine intentionally set a mattress on fire, as that was the point of origin for the fire, police say. A note was also left stating Bernadine's intention to take her own life and the life of her children. So, I don't know what. It's awful. I don't care that she died so much because she killed her kids, and that's fucking awful. She deserves to die. But she also killed 3 fucking dogs in this fire. Killed all of her dogs. Didn't, let them in the backyard. Didn't do any of that shit. She said, I'm taking the kids out. I'm taking the dogs out. I'm taking fucking everyone out. And we're dying in a fire. It's absurd. That was, Missouri, Kansas City, their news article place. Know what the fuck I'm talking about. Their newspaper has a good story on it from early in this year in February. Number 22 now, Jennifer Bowser. It's just, every time I think of this bitch, I think of a Lady Bowser and doing some real murderous shit, coming out on Halloween. Little Lady Bowser doing terrible shit. Bowser told police on February 5th, 2024, earlier this year, just as well. She barricaded herself and her son in her room in an effort to keep him safe. When she was getting the boy ready for on Sunday, voices began to say that the cops were coming and were going to shoot through the wall and kill the child. Bowser told police she smothered the boy in the early morning hours after a voice told her it would be better It would be better to smother him than him being shot or being with her for the rest of his life. She said voices told her to smother him. He didn't have to go to HE double hockey sticks. That's a quote. That is from court documents. That is not me being an asshole. She said she did not want him to go to HE double hockey sticks. So, thoughtful, I guess, in that sense. She's definitely, I'm interested to see what she's sentenced with. She has pleaded not guilty by reason of insanity. So I'll see what comes up. If she's sentenced, what comes out of that, or if she's found not guilty. So very peculiar. Going to keep an eye on that one. For 23, we have Lindsay Clancy on January 24th of 2023. This is last year, obviously. After arriving home, prosecutors say Patrick, her husband, did not see or hear his wife or their children, so he called Lindsay's cell phone looking for them. He went to their bedroom and found it locked. When he was able to get inside, he saw blood on the floor and an open window. He looked out the window and saw his wife on the ground outside with wounds on her neck and wrist, and she was conscious, and Patrick asked Lindsay, "What did you do?" She replied that she jumped out of the window trying to kill herself. During the ensuing 911 call, prosecutors say Patrick can be heard asking his wife where the kids are. She replies, "In the basement." When emergency medical technicians arrived, Patrick went to look for his kids. It can be heard on the 911 call, entering the home and then the basement, and then screaming in agony and shock as he found his children strangled in the basement. Cora and Callan were on the floor in the den area of the finished basement, and Dawson was alone on the floor in his father's home office. Each child still had the exercise band used to strangle them tied around their necks when their father found them, prosecutors said. Patrick removed the bands and could be hearing begging his children to breathe. He continued to scream uncontrollably. "She killed the kids! She killed the kids!" Crazy. I can't even imagine. He was talking to her on the phone. He ordered, he was like talking to her about getting food. They talked about getting dinner. He asked what she wanted. She asked him what he wanted. They ordered food. He went to pick up this food and came back to this fucking nightmare scene. Nightmare situation. Absolutely absurd. He might have been coming home from work even. Just gone for the day, pick up some food, expecting to have dinner with the fam. Nope. Change for the rest of your life. All right, so only a couple more. That was 23. 24, Deanna Laney, Deanna, Deanna, at roughly 11:30 p.m. on May 9th, 2003. Laney woke and took Josh 8 to the yard of her home in New Chapel Hill, Texas, where she lifted a large rock over her head and brought it down against his skull, fatally wounding him. She then dragged her 6-year-old son, Luke, to the same area and killed him in the same manner. At some point afterwards, she attempted to kill her youngest son, 14-month-old Aaron, in the crib with a stone, but she did not succeed for some reason. He was found alive with a pillow placed over his face, having sustained severe head injuries. 5 mental health experts were consulted in Laney's case, 2 each by the prosecution and defense and 1 by the judge. All of them arrived at the conclusion that she had psychotic delusions, which made her unable to know right from wrong at the time of the killings. A Smith County court found her not guilty by the reason of insanity. She was committed to Kerrville State Hospital for 8 years until her release in 2012, so she is out. However, she is subject to illicit conditions, including that she may have no unsupervised contact with minors, and that she must submit to regular drug tests to ensure that she takes her medication. Last but not least by any means, Dina Schlosser, an American woman who lived in Plano, Texas. Fuck. Alright, shit. This one gets, I think, darker than microwaving your child to death. This one really fucked with me. Just a lot of her actions. An American woman who lived in Plano, Texas on November 22nd, 2004, used a knife to amputate amputate the arms of her 10-month-old daughter, Margaret, who died as a result, not surprisingly. Plano police responded to a 911 call made by the mother. The operator testified that she confessed to the crime and that the gospel song, "He Touched Me," played in the background. He Touched Me, classic, just a classic by the Gaither vocal group. And I'm going to play a little bit of that ditty right now. All right, yeah, hell yeah. Okay, building it. Oh. Jesus. Yeah, he touched me. He touched me.
And now I am no longer the same. He touched me.
All right, so that song played in the background. When police arrived, they saw her calmly sitting down in the living room, covered in blood, holding the knife, and singing Christian hymns. I feel like I should just have that song playing softly in the background. Just a second. Hours after her arrest, police heard her repeatedly chanting, "Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Lord." She was found not guilty by reason of insanity, if you can believe that, in 2006, and was committed to the North Texas State Hospital and ordered to go there until she is no longer deemed a threat to herself or others. There, she was a roommate of Andrea Yates, a Texas woman who drowned her children in a tub, like I talked about earlier, drowned her 5 children. During the trial, much attention was drawn to Schlosser, and her husband attending Water of Life Church, a charismatic church pastored by Davidson. She had been taking antipsychotic drugs for several years prior to Margaret's death. Davidson thought that mental illness was demonic, and this belief partly led Schlosser's husband to not buy her medication regularly. So because their religion told them that her illness was a sign of the devil, they said, "We're not going to treat it," which to me makes no fucking sense. Under oath, Davidson testified that in his view, all mental health is demonic at bottom, so why would you not want to exorcise that demon? Get it the fuck out of there, yeah! Get the fuck out! Due to viewer outcry after the trial, Davidson's television ministry was canceled everywhere outside the Metroplex. Good for him. Fuck him, Davidson bitch-ass motherfucker. After Schlosser's arrest, her children were taken by CPS and kept in foster care. CPS said that they would only allow her husband to regain custody of them under the condition that his sister lived with the family, and he was required to complete psychotherapy and parenting classes. He received full custody of his daughters and raised them as a single father, which is good. I'm happy for him, happy that they're still alive. He subsequently filed for divorce. As a part of the divorce settlement, Schlosser was prohibited from ever contacting him or their daughters again. Can never talk to them unless the daughters reach out to her or he reaches out to her. On November 6, 2008, it was announced that Schlosser would shortly be released into outpatient care. Fucking terrifying. The order required her to see a psychiatrist once a week, take medication, be on physician-approved birth control, and not have any unsupervised contact with children. In April of 2010, it was reported that Schlosser was recommitted after firefighters from Richardson saw her walking down the street at 2 a.m. in a psychotic state. Her attorney, David Haynes, said that he felt the judge made the correct decision. Bad when your attorney says, yeah, should probably not be out. Schlosser was later released again in 2012. She stayed out of the public eye until WFAA-TV in Dallas reported that she was working under her maiden name Leitner at a Walmart in Terrell, and within hours, they fired her ass. They didn't know of her crime because she was never convicted, technically. She was found not guilty. They didn't know that she was a murderer, killed her fucking kid, didn't know any of that shit. So they fired her very, very fast when they found that out. As of December 2020, Dina Schlosser was ordered to remain committed to a state hospital. All right, fucking wow. All right, we've talked about a lot of murderous mothers today, a whole hell of a lot of filicide and infanticide going on. We've talked about some mothers who have killed due to custody battles, some that have killed due to demons or voices in their head, and some that took their own lives due to, and the lives of their kids due to depression. Now, let's look at something a little less horrifying right now. Let's bounce to today's main marks. All right, number one, in ancient Greco-Roman societies, a father had the legal authority to end his child's life without facing repercussions. You ever just want to kill your kid? Which actually, it's not as uncommon as you may think. The amount of people who think about killing their kids, pretty high, actually, according to a couple of studies. This practice was seen as an extension of patriarchal power, with the father's will considered paramount over the child's life. Number two, filicide's history is intertwined with societal, religious, and legal shifts. In ancient societies like Sparta, infanticide was even institutionalized, I think I said that wrong earlier, with newborns inspected for strength and viability. Those deemed weak were abandoned to die. Number three, England's Infanticide Acts of 1922 and 1938 marked a significant turning point by acknowledging the impact of childbirth on a mother's mental health. These laws recognized the postpartum mental illness could influence a mother's actions, and as a result, filicide was treated more like manslaughter than murder. Number four, some women, like Andrea Yates, killed their children due to postpartum depression, delusions, and psychosis. Others, like Christy Sheets or Jessica Edens, killed their kids to get back at the father of the children, either due to custody concerns or unfaithfulness arising. There are so many reasons that mothers have been known to kill their kids, but is it a subject we will ever truly understand? I'm not quite sure about that. Number five, new info. According to a 2017 article named "A Parent Killing a Child Happens More Often Than We Think" by CNN under the health section, 500 kids are killed by their parents every year. This includes all ages, not just minors, not just those who are under 18, so all ages. But of that 500 average, over 70% are under 6 years old. And while we talked about murderous mothers today, the fact is that men and women are just as nearly likely as the other to commit neonaticide, infanticide, or filicide, with 57% of cases involving the fathers and 43% involving the mothers. All right, now that we've gotten through the main marks, through this horror that is of murderous mothers, let's head into our final takeaways. Jeez, oh Pete, man, jeez Louise, oh my gosh, and goodness gracious. What an absolutely fucked up episode that one was. Lots of gore, lots of murder. So we went all the way to ancient Greco-Roman and Sparta times, where parents were often allowed to kill their children with very little to no repercussions for their actions, to today, the 21st century, where in America, a person can be put to death for taking the life of their child. Will we ever understand why these murders occur? Perhaps not. And will we ever be able to appropriately define standards for punishment on these actions? I honestly highly doubt it. It's too many opinions. The collision of opinions surrounding the topic will always stir up a tremendous amount of apprehension in one group or another. It's hard. So many ways to look at it, so many different opinions coming at it. I don't think a set standard will ever really be put into place. What can you say? Murder is murder, and it's a sad and unmatched event that can't be taken lightly. But with those thoughts thrown out there, you can form your own opinions on the subject, and we can take a look ahead to something a little brighter. Next week, here on Beneath the Shadows, we'll be taking a look at the history of America's national parks. Let's get outdoors. Let's enjoy some nature. Fuck yeah. From Yosemite to Yellowstone to Acadia and more. We will dive into how they all started, some noteworthy moments from within these parks, some odd statistics about a few of them, and finally, we'll go on a little trip and look into some mysterious happenings that may have potentially be episodes for the future, potential future episode topics. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. Please remember to go review and rate the show if you haven't. Give the show 5 stars if you like it, and leave a review as well. It's incredibly helpful and brings more recognition to the show. I appreciate it. I'm a one-man army here, so anything you can do really, really helps a lot. It's tremendous support for me and encourages me to keep putting my best foot forward. So thank you so much. Thank you for what you have done so far. Thank you for all you do going ahead. Moving forward now, please also go check out the Instagram and TikTok along with Patreon. Instagram and TikTok are going to be posted weekly. Updates just pretty much when episodes are released. And Patreon will have shorter 15, 20-minute episodes somewhere in that area, releasing bi-weekly Thursdays. I just released the first one on the 10th. The next one will come out on the 24th. It's on Thursdays sometime during the day. I released yesterday's at like 11 p.m., so don't be angry. It will be on Thursdays, though. Just might be late. Other than that, there is a Gmail. Please send updates about yourself, send topic suggestions, send articles, send anything you'd like really to Beneath the Shadows podcast at gmail.com. I appreciate you all. Go follow the accounts, leave the ratings and reviews, go do something for yourself. But do not go out and murder your children. I'd appreciate it. I think they would too. Or don't go killing anyone else's kids either, for that matter. Thank you again so much for joining me for today's episode. It's been such a blast. It's the first episode that might be over an hour. I am your host, Travis Fenn. This has been Beneath the Shadows, and remember to take care and have yourselves a wonderful fucking week, my shadow people. Peace out.
Wow.